श्री श्री भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी शिल प्रभुपाद की जय। इस्कॉन संस्थापकाचार्य शिल प्रभुपाद की जय। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परमजगत स्तोत्र सदस्य श्रीमद भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज प्रभुपाद की जय। जय ओम विष्णुपाद श्री गौर किशोर दास महाराज की जय। जय ओम विष्णुपाद सच्चिदानंद शिल भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय। जय ओम विष्णुपाद वैष्णव सार्वभौम श्री जगन्नाथ दास महाराज की जय। जय श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भट्टदास गोस्वामी प्रभु की जय। नमाचार्य श्री हरदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से गो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवाचार्य गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। श्री श्री गौरांगी बेंगलोर ईश्वर भगवान की जय। श्री मायापुर धाम की जय। श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय। कंक माई की जय। यमुना माई की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। तुलसी देवी की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णवंत की जय। श्री हरनाम संकीर्तन की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद भागवतम की जय। इस्कॉन वर्तमान गुरुवंद की जय। समावित भक्तवंद की जय। गौर प्रेमानंद हरि हरि बोल। All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam. Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudi Hayet. Nashtaprayeshu Abhatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtihi. Moham Karvati Vacha Kapangam Mangi. Hare Krishna, welcome you all to this Saturday morning summary study. Today we are discussing from Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 4th Canto, chapter 21. We'll discuss from text 1 to text 26, the first half of this chapter. Om Karvati Vacha Kapangam Mangi Digam Atpad Deshi Guru Yatan Purmanda Bhagavad Vishchi Chaitanya Mishra Shpada Krishna Vasudha. Just to recapitulate what has happened in the previous chapter. Prithu Maharaj was an empowered incarnation. We call them a Shakti Avesha Avataras. The Lord has many incarnations, of which Shakti Avatara is one, that Lord empowers a living entity to perform tasks which the Lord himself performs. And they appear for a particular purpose and then they wind up. So Prithu Maharaj performed 99 yajnas and he was preparing for the 100th sacrifice, in which Lord Krishna was also present in that sacrifice. The demigods and others offered many gifts in the sacrifice. During Prithu Maharaj's rule, Lord Vishnu was also very happy. The citizens were very happy. At that time, Indra comes to steal the sacrificial horse, and then there is some deception, and then Prithu Maharaj becomes angry, takes his bow and arrow, and then Brahma descends, and then he points to Indra taking up a false sannyasi. Thereafter, he consoles Prithu Maharaj, and Prithu Maharaj continues that. So it is said that it is thereafter that many apasampradayas cropped up. We see every day a new sampradaya coming up and preaching something which is against the injunctions of the Shastras. So now in this chapter, we see that Prithu Maharaj is entering the palace, and then he gives some very valuable instructions to the citizens in general. We'll start with text number 1. I'll read few selective verses which are important. Since we are, the first one may not be very important, but to start with, I'm reading that. Maitreya Uvacha Muktikai Kushumap Srakbir Dukulai Swarnato Ranaihi Mahasura Bibir Dupair Manditam Tatra Tatra Vai. Translation Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The great sage Maitreya told Vidura, when the king entered his city, it was very beautifully decorated to receive him with pearls, flower garlands, beautiful cloth, and golden gates, and the entire city was perfumed with highly fragrant incenses. We understand some important point from this translation and purport. So the great sage Maitreya told Vidura, when the king entered his city, it was very beautifully decorated to receive him with pearls, flower garlands, beautiful cloth, golden gates, and the entire city was perfumed with highly fragrant uh, incense. So it is mentioned that real opulence is supplied by nature, such as gold, silver, pearls. Those days, pearls were very, very valuable and very, very scarce. And nowadays it is scarce. Then there were valuable stones, fresh flowers, trees, and silken cloth, etc. These were all very highly valuable gifts. So the Vedic civilization recommends opulence and decoration with these natural gifts of the given by the personality of Godhead himself. And there is a mention that such types of opulence immediately changes the condition of the mind, and the entire atmosphere becomes spiritualized. It gives a totally different mood. Nowadays we see all artificial things, like for example, without heater in winter or without AC in summer, people can't live. Then we see a lot of wallpapers and instead of natural paints. And so even to the extent that even the natural trees and plants are substituted by artificial plants. But during Prithu Maharaj's time, everything was abundantly available, and these items used to be used for decoration. Even today, we might find that during a marriage or any important religious function, the streets are cleaned and then decorated with banana plants. Some Vedic culture is still present in India, banana flower trees and banana flowers and so forth. One time it is said that when Srila Prabhupada uh, was in one of his rooms in the Western countries, uh, he saw a lawn and then he told he wanted to walk in the lawn, and he walked in the lawn. He said that when you walk in a lawn that is, this is in fact a quote, one of the purport itself, it is said that when you walk in a lawn, it increases the mode of goodness because it is very close to nature. But even that is being substituted these days by many artificial products. So one time when Srila Prabhupada was in one of the Western countries, he saw from his balcony, there was some beautiful looking lawn, and asked one of his disciples if they could go for a walk in that lawn. The disciple said that it is a plastic lawn, and then Srila Prabhupada said that there's no point because natural opulence spiritualize the atmosphere, which is mentioned in the purport also, and cleanses the mind. So Vedic life was basically uh, and he said natural gives, like the grass gives oxygen, whereas plastic gives a lot of stress, which these intricacies we don't understand in our day-to-day life. But that is how the Vedic life, it was always, the practices were to keep a very clean mind. Whereas now the practices somehow or other add unnatural things, and which creates a lot of stress in our mind also. And they are also difficult to dispose of, and the countries have to develop so many artificial means to dispose of these items. Like one time plastic was very, very popular, but nowadays again they have started that plastic is very harmful to health. This is material world, and everyone is concerned how to dispose of plastic. This is the condition of the material world today. Then we go to text number 2. Translation Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Fragrant water distilled from sandalwood and aguru herb was sprinkled everywhere on the lanes, roads, and small parks throughout the city. And everywhere were decorations of unbroken fruits, flowers, wetted grains, varied minerals, and lamps, and all presented as auspicious paraphernalia. So some of the important two, at least out of all these, we can understand that sandalwood was very important even those days, and it is very important today also. Similarly, aguru is a very known natural perfume which was used those days, and even today also some occasions where the Lord's festival is celebrated, this aguru is also utilized. These are now very, very scarce items. Text number 3. All the street crossings, at the street crossings, there were bunches of fruits and flowers, as well as pillars of banana trees and betel nut branches. All these combined decorations everywhere look very attractive. So this practice continues even today in many places. Uh, for example, in Puri, if you go during Rath Yatra, before the Rath starts, they sprinkle water with scented perfumes, and they clean. In fact, the king of Puri himself uh, sweeps the road with a broom. So that culture is still prevalent in many places these days also. And many places they used to decorate with kalasas, flowers, and fruits. So this is done normally for spiritual master, king, the bridegroom also at the time of marriage. Now, why, one might question, spiritual master is none other than a representation of the Lord himself. Then to the king is considered, was considered those days to be a representative of the Lord himself. The Lord appoints the king. One does not straight away become a king. It's the Lord's arrangement that kings are given this thing to rule a kingdom. And then thirdly, there's a mention about bridegroom also, because in the Vedic system of marriage, bridegroom was considered also as a representative of the Lord. And as far as the bride is concerned, the girl is supposed to be protected by a father in her house until she grows up. Then once she gets married, the husband is supposed to take care of her. And then um, when as she grows old, either she along with her husband go on a vanaprastha, and they live in forests and mountains for several years. And after uh, this, the wife comes back. She doesn't go, and the husband might take a sannyasi, and therefore the wife comes back, and then she's taken care of by her son. And that is how the system was. And the elderly people were very happy, because the husband, even if he takes sannyas, he lives in a renounced order of life, which we'll understand in the next few verses. And the wife used to be taken care of by her sons. So there was no question of negligence on their part. Text number 4. This is an important sloka. Text 4. Prajastam Deepa Balibihi Sambrush शेषमङ्गलैः अभियुर्मृष्टकन्याश्च मृष्टकुण्डलमण्डिताः. Translation Srila Prabhupada ki jai. As the king entered the gate of the city, all the citizens received him with many auspicious articles like lamps, flowers, and yogurt. The king was also received by many beautiful unmarried girls whose bodies were bedecked with various ornaments, especially with earrings which collided with one another. So this was a system of reception when these great personalities used to come, and this practice continues today also. We have seen, at least whenever spiritual masters come, we greet him with all auspicious items like lamps, we offer flowers, etc. The king also was received those days by many beautiful unmarried girls. Uh, uh, Now, Aarti is something that we do offer today also, and auspicious items we offer like sometimes scent and sometimes flowers and fruits, etc. Now, unmarried girls, there's a mention here because unmarried girls are supposed to be both internally and externally clean, and they were dressed in very nice garments and ornaments. And it is said that such unmarried girls, also known as Kumaris, were untouched by the hand of any member of the opposite sex. And such girls are considered to be auspicious members of the society. Now, we will understand a little bit more also. This tradition was present in those days. And if you go to the villages, and it is present today also, the conservative families, they generally don't allow unmarried girls to go out freely or mix with boys. Now, the reason is that if you see today, uh, uh, the women are exploited, women being the weaker sex. When we say the weaker sex, there are a lot of reasons. Uh, if you see today, the tendency is that the men go out late in the night, the women also go out in the night. The women are exploited, and then they lose their chastity also, and there is no uh, potency in them. It is more of a sense gratification, and that is why we see that women are kidnapped, raped, and murdered. Now, so many things are going on, even as good as at a very young age. So this is because that is why it is said that women, girls and women had to be protected all through their life so that there is no exploitation. So there was no free connection between men and women, and that is why the society was also very peaceful. And it is said that women can act as an encouragement for men, provided she remains chaste. And women were respected those days. They were not exploited. And so that is the reason they were the first to lead any profession, any procession. And it is said that women, when they are not exploited, become a cause of auspiciousness when protected. So, like I mentioned about the protection by their father at their early age, they become a cause of auspiciousness, where their very presence gives them auspicious to the entire occasion. And seeing them pure, because they are pure, it gives a lot of auspiciousness to the function. It is also said that a good girl child, she may not be beautiful externally, but then she beautifies the home. That is why they, many times, even the Western years, they, uh, even if they have got male children, they were feeling somewhere deprived if they did not have a girl child, because a girl child beautifies the home just like Lakshmi. Now, this is a natural arrangement by the Lord Himself. Both are important to the society. A girl is also very important, and a boy is also important, because when his forefathers leave the material world, the boy has to offer pinda to deliver their forefathers. So this is why both of them were important, but in the interest of the society, both were living as chaste, and they used to join together only to procreate, not enjoy and create children. So the society was peaceful. This is important. Text number 5. When the king entered the palace, conch shells and kettle drums were sounded. Priests chanted Vedic mantras, and professional reciters offered different prayers. But in spite of all this ceremony to welcome him, the king was not the least bit affected. So when the king entered the palace, the conch shells were blown. In fact, conch shells are very, very auspicious, even during those days, even auspicious today also. But good conch shells are very difficult to get. One has to look for them. And kettle drums were sounded. The priests used to chant Vedic mantras like Purusha Sukta, Shi Sukta, and so forth, like that. And professional reciters were used to offer different prayers. But in spite of all these ceremonies done to receive the king with a lot of opulence, the king never became proud. This is the most important point in this sloka. With like that, Prithu Maharaj, though he was received with a lot of opulence, etc., he never became developed pride in himself. On the other hand, he was very, very humble, which we'll see in the last few slokas. The example is given, analogy is given that a tree which has got a lot of fruits and flowers and etc., it does not stand erect in pride, but instead bends down to show its submissiveness. This is a good example, and this is a sign of a wonderful character of great personalities. Those days, kings used to have a lot of opulence, but they understood that they were all appointed by the Lord Himself. So they were acted as representatives of the Lord. So they never developed any pride. But thereafter, things started deteriorating, and we see that uh, even during Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's time, there were occasions, there was a reciter of Srimad Bhagavatam called Devananda Pandita. He spoke like a great scholar in Srimad Bhagavatam, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that he does not have any devotion to the Lord. In fact, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chastised him. Similarly, there was a Pandit called Digvijay Pandit. He came with a lot of opulence, many horses, many elephants, and etc. And he used to recite verses very scholarly. But one time when he met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there was a discussion between both of them, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu defeated them. Now, this Digvijay Pandit was actually uh, a scholar. He was empowered by Saraswati Devi herself. But Mahaprabhu was Lord himself. I'm not going into the detail. In the course of their discussion, Mahaprabhu defeated him. And then at some point, he came to the thought that how is it he was blessed by Saraswati Devi, but he was defeated. Saraswati Devi appeared in his dream and said that you are trying to defeat the Lord whom I myself worship. And then finally, when Digvijay Pandit apologized to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Mahaprabhu said, you leave all your opulences, go, then you'll develop that attitude to preach. That means that opulences that he had made him very, very proud. So, but a good exceptional leader and he understands that whatever is there, it are given by the Lord himself. Many times, even after coming to devotional service, initial stages, we find many devotees developing skills like singing, playing mridanga, speaking. And then what happens is, over a period of time, when devotees start appreciating, oh, you played, yes, well, you sang very well, you played mridanga very well, you spoke very well. These things add up one's ego, and which gradually becomes instrumental in developing pride to the person. So one has to be very, very careful. This is one important point for application for us today. Text number 6. Both the important citizens and the common citizens welcomed the king very heartily, and he also bestowed upon them their blessings. So the citizen in the audience, there were many important citizens, which we find today also, the leaders of some groups, etc., and the common citizens. So they all welcomed the king very heartily, and he also gave him their blessings. So some important points here. A responsible king was always approachable by his citizens. Generally, those days, there was citizens also never had any grievances, but even if they had, they were approachable to the king, and the king would resolve them. And the king in turn would give yeah, new and this. Whenever he met the citizens, he immediately fulfilled their desires and mitigated their grievances. People also, citizens also never had much of a desire, because whatever, after all, one requires some clothing, some food and shelter. And if that is there, people were very happy. Even if up to 30 years, 40 years before, uh, until the technological, so-called technological development came, people were very happy with simple living. That's what Srila Prabhupada always used to uh, uh, promote: simple living, high thinking. These technologies don't give us any happiness. So it is said that a responsible monarchy is better than a so-called democratic government in which no one is responsible to mitigate the grievance of the citizens who are unable to personally meet the supreme executive head. So in a monarchy, the citizens had the opportunity to meet the king anytime they wanted. And the king also would mitigate their grievances. We see even in Ramayana, in the end of Ramayana, I will not go into the detail of that pastime. A Brahmana hit a dog with a stone, and the dog started bleeding. And the dog went to Lord Rama's palace, and he met Lord Ram. Initially, the gatekeepers and even Lakshmana were not permitting the dog to address Lord Rama, but then Lord Rama himself went himself and addressed the grievance to the dog. That is how they were considering every living entity very important in their society during their history years. But now with democracy, we see we don't know who is a leader, what their everyone has got a problem, and nobody knows whom to approach, where, what, how, and all these things. And even if you have to approach, you may have to give some kind of bribe, and after all these things, also your job might not get done. This is the condition today. There also, if you see, if any, I don't know how many of you have seen the Vedic times, whenever a big, great personality was received, there used to be a huge bell on the outskirts of the city, and that used to ring. That means there was an important visitor to the town. Text number 7. स एवमादीनि अनवत्य चेष्टितः कर्माणि भूयांसि महान् महत्तमः कुर्वन् सावनि मण्डलं यशः स्फितं नित्यायारुरुहे परं पदम्. Translation Srila Prabhupada ki jai. King Prithu was greater than the greatest soul and was therefore worshipable by everyone. He performed many glorious activities in ruling over the surface of the world and were always magnanimous. After achieving such great success and a reputation which spread throughout the universe, he at last obtained the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is one very important sloka here, where we find some many important points. Prithu Maharaj was the greatest of the devotees, and therefore he was not only an empowered incarnation, but he was also greatest of the devotees also. So therefore he was worshipable by everyone, and he performed many, many glorious activities like flattening the earth, milking the earth, etc. So a king's or a chief executive or a president maybe they have a lot of responsible duties to attend to in ruling over the kingdom. And the most important duty is to perform various sacrifices as enjoined in the Vedic literatures. So sacrifices used to be performed for the pleasure of the Lord. And when the Lord is happy, the Lord used to provide all the necessities of all the citizens. The king was happy, the citizens were also happy. Another important duty of the king was to see that every citizen executes the prescribed duties for his particular community. It is the king's duties that everyone uh, uh, go performs as per their varna and asrama divisions of the society. You all might be knowing as far as the varnas and asramas are concerned. Brahmana, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Sudras, Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasi. So everyone had their duty to perform, and when those duties were performed perfectly, then the ultimate end of that would be they would be promoted to the transcendental world, which is called Parampadam. Parampadam means Vaikuntha planets. This world is called Kunta. Kunta means we're always full of anxiety, but Vaikuntha means where there is no anxiety, and this can be achieved only by the process of devotional service, nothing else. But it was a king's duty to ensure those days that they all become devotees of the Lord. When they become devotees of the Lord, then everything is possible. The earth will produce sufficient food grains, which we have seen even in Prithu Maharaj's thing. In the previous Disney also, whenever there was a scarcity of food, it was understood that there was something wrong with the king. If the king is godly and he is a devotee of the Lord, everything will be available in abundance, for which sacrifices had to be performed. Therefore, King Prithu was known as Mahatamaha, greater than the greatest. Text number 8. Shuddha Goswami continued, O Saunaka, leader of the great sages, after hearing Maitreya speak about the various activities of King Prithu, the original king, who was fully qualified, glorified, and widely praised all over the world, Vidura, the great devotee, very submissively worshipped Maitreya Rishi and asked him the following question. So Vidura heard a lot from Maitreya, and after hearing from Maitreya about the glories of Prithu Maharaj, Vidura became much more inquisitive. This is the qualification of one who is a person who is interested in Vedic wisdom. The moment he heard about Prithu Maharaj and his glories, he wanted to know more and more, and he became inspired to know more about Prithu Maharaj, because Prithu Maharaj himself was a very great, qualified, was a glorified and widely praised all over the world. Text number 9. Vidura said, My dear Brahmana Maitreya, It is very enlightening to understand that King Prithu was enthroned by the great sages and Brahmanas. Uh, all the demigods presented him with innumerable gifts. He also explained his influence upon personally receiving strength from Lord Vishnu. Thus, he greatly developed the earth. Here also a lot of important points are there. Now, because Prithu Maharaj was an empowered incarnation of Lord Vishnu, naturally he was a great Vaishnava devotee of the Lord also. When there is a king who is a great devotee of the Lord, the demigods also become very pleased with him. And because Prithu Maharaj was also a great devotee, the demigods presented him with a lot of gifts to help him in exercising his royal power in the throne. Now, when a king is uh, enthroned, he requires a lot of power to execute his duties, for which the demigods used to help him because when the king is a pure devotee of the Lord, the demigods who are also servants of the Lord help him in every possible way and they supply everything with abundance. But today we see that there's either a scarcity of rain or there is a flood somewhere because there is no sacrifice. The only sacrifice that can be performed in Kali Yuga is chanting the holy name of the Lord. And thus, this way, the great sages, Brahmanas, etc., they all uh, blessed the king and he ruled over the earth and exploited its resources for the greater satisfaction of the people in general. So, like I mentioned, Prithu Maharaj flattened the earth and milked the uh, earth also, and the earth produced abundant ingredients, and that's how the citizens were happy. As long as citizens get what they want, citizens will always be happy. Like I if mentioned, if they get some cloth to wear, if they have some food and some shelter, that's all people require. Nothing more is required. So the executive head of the state actually decided that should follow the footsteps of Prithu Maharaj in ruling a kingdom, regardless of whether one is a king or a president, or whether monarchy or democracy. The process is that perfect if it is followed properly. Then everybody will be happy. The king will be happy. Uh, the citizens will be happy, and the Supreme Lord will also be happy. Now, neither the king is happy, nor the citizens are happy, nor the Supreme Lord is happy. Text number 10. Translation, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Prithu Maharaj was so great in his activities and magnanimous in his method of ruling that all the kings and demigods on the various planets still follow in his footsteps. Who is there who will not try to hear about his glorious activities? I wish to hear more and more about Prithu Maharaj because his activities are so pious and auspicious. So the purpose of Vidura hearing about Prithu Maharaj was that Prithu Maharaj was a great example for ordinary kings and executive heads. And when the kings hear about the pastimes of Prithu Maharaj, they follow in his footsteps and rule the kingdom accordingly in their respective planets. There are many planets in this universe. This universe itself is the smallest, and there are kings in all these planets. There are citizens in all these planets. We might not have the material sense to perceive all these things, but there are living entities everywhere, and they each one have its own capacity, and each one has got a different character. For example, it is said the denizens of the heavenly planet don't require an airplane. They have, like the inhabitants of Settaloka, they fly without an airplane also. So this is how different planets are there, different universes are there, different leaders are there, either as a king or whatever president or whatever may be. But then Vidura's question was, Maitreya Rishi was, Vidura's question was, Prithu Maharaj was so exalted and so his activities were also very great. And who is there who will not like to listen to the activities of Prithu Maharaj? And someone, if he follows in his footsteps, everybody will be happy. So if only because we don't hear to these leadership qualities, how they rule the kingdom, uh, people rule their countries based on their whims and fancies. That is why we see the religious principles are not followed anywhere. And so neither the citizens nor the king is happy. Even if there is an abundance of material resources, people might think that India doesn't have material resources, but India has got plenty of abundant resources. We have become so greedy to exploit, and our desires have become unlimited. Text number 11. Important verse. Maitreya vacha Ganga Yamunayor Nadyor Antarakshetram Avasan Arabtan Eva Bhuje Bhogan Punya Jihasaya. Translation Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The great saintly say Maitreya told Vidura, my dear Vidura, King Prithu lived in the tract of land between two great rivers, Ganges and Yamuna. Because he was very opulent, it appeared that he was enjoying his destined fortune in order to diminish the results of his pious activities. Some important points here, many important points here. So, two important things. One is pious and impious activities. When you perform pious activity, you get good results in this life or next life. When you perform impious activities, you get sinful reactions in this life or next life, depending upon what type of activities. But even by pious activities, it will bring lot of comforts in this life. And whatever activities you perform, the results start diminishing. It is not that the results of the pious activities are eternally there. And it is not that the results of the sinful reactions in the form of sinful reactions will always be there. So they get reduced as one continues to perform his karma. But in the case of a devotee is above all pious and impious activities because he performs everything as a service to Krishna. And Mahaja Prithu, being a direct empowered incarnation of the Lord, he was not subject to the reactions of pious or impious activities because he was doing everything for the pleasure of the Lord. That is why he could perform his duties very, very well. So kings those days used to have a lot of opulence, but being a devotee of the Lord, they never had any attachment for this opulence. That is very important. Otherwise, it creates a sort of a disturbance in the system. If one develops an attachment, that becomes a great impediment. That is why it is said that when one has a lot of opulence, in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam itself, Queen Kunti says that high parentage, a lot of wealth, and material education, they are a big impediment in devotional service because when one gets all these things, one becomes puffed up. He develops a lot of pride. Like I mentioned, two examples from during Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's time itself. So if one has got opulence, but still he is able to be very humble, it's a grace mercy of the Lord that he has got. So he should be very careful. And we should develop that quality. Even if I have a lot of opulence, one should not develop pride. Pride is a very big impediment. But in the case of Prithu Maharaj, he was naturally having it because he was above pious and impious activities. Text number 12. Prithu Maharaj was an unrivaled king and possessed the scepter for ruling all the 7 islands on the surface of the globe. No one could disobey his irrevocable orders but the saintly persons, the Brahmanas, and descendants of the personality of Godhead. So we have some important points here. It is mentioned that Saptadvipa, which was also known, are 7 great islands or continents, the years. These 7 were classified as Asia, Europe, Africa, North America, South America, Australia, and Oceania. So this is how the classification existed before also. In the Vedic system also, it is not that America and other places were discovered. They were always existing and they were all part of one country. That was Bharat. So if somebody says that the countries were discovered, it's wrong. It's not a fact. So Prithu Maharaj ruled over the world many thousands of years, even during the prehistoric age. It is clearly mentioned that those days were not only uh, were the different parts of the world unknown, were known, but they were all ruled by one king. That was one example was Prithu Maharaj. Also, there is a mention that Prithu Maharaj lived in a land which was coming between Ganges and Yamuna. And this portion is somewhere between Punjab and northern India. The exact city is not known, but he stayed between the two holy rivers, Ganga and Yamuna. Another important point is that the orders of the king were never disobeyed by anyone in the entire world, and such orders were never issued to control saintly persons or descendants of the personality of Godhead. That means orders were given for the citizens, but orders were not given to saintly person. Why? Because the king used to rule the kingdom based on the advice given by the sages or the brahmanas or the devotees of the Lord. This was the system in the yesteryears. The kings never had any knowledge in the Shastras, but the Brahmanas and devotees of the Lord of the yesteryears, they had a lot of knowledge which were given in scriptures. And based on that, they used to rule the kingdom. Now, for example, for hearing how we are hearing how Prithu Maharaj was. So if we apply this in day-to-day life, the kingdom will be happy, the king will be happy, citizens will be happy, and the Lord will be happy. So that is how they used to advise the king. So the kings were never under the kings could not control the sages. They could give orders to the citizens, but not the great sages or descendants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Nowadays, we find that there are so many gotras and so many family designations, but they are all in terms of the material body. But people don't know even what is the meaning of a gotra. Like, for example, we say when one takes initiation, he comes to Achyuta Gotra. So when I was discussing this with somebody said, no, this Gotras never change. But when one gets this Achyuta Gotra, he becomes a descendant under the personality of Godhead. So Prithu Maharaj did not have any control over the Brahmanas because they were all well versed in Vedic knowledge. And with their advice, he used to rule the kingdom. There is a quote also saying that one who thinks the deity in the temple to be made of wood or stone, who thinks of the spiritual master in the disciplic succession as an ordinary man, who thinks the Vaishnava in the Achyuta Gotra to belong to a certain caste or creed, or who thinks of Charanamrita or Ganges water as ordinary water, is taken to be a resident of hell. That means one should not consider deity as something that is just made of wood. The Lord is actually present there. A spiritual master is actually a representation of the Lord himself. Devotees of the Lord does not belong to any caste or creed. And Ganges water or Ganges water is not an ordinary water. But if someone considers these, then on these lines, then he can go to hell very easily. So people in general were controlled by the king and accepting these Vaishnavas and Brahmanas. But those days, the Brahmanas were never proud. They never spoke lies. They had no grudge against anyone. They were always devoid of false prestige and they were free from envy and were not disturbed by others' opulence. Such Brahmanas' blessings never go in vain. So even if there's a Brahmana with all these qualities, if one gets his blessings, the blessings are very effective. Now, when Brahmana studies subjects other than religious subjects and work for others for money, then he's no more a Brahmana. And whereas a Brahmana who works like a Brahmana with those qualities which I mentioned and does not earn and demand an income, which Brahmanas do. If I have to perform this function, I need so much of money. If Brahmanas will live with such exalted qualities, they're not demanding money, it is said that he gets Brahma Tejas. That Brahma Tejas because they don't take money, but they work selflessly for the Lord. And the Lord takes care of them. It's not that the Lord ignores them. The Lord provides whatever is required for them. Then in that case, the Kshatriyas used to treat these Brahmanas as God himself, as good as God. And they are greater than the kings. So the kings used to rule as per their advice because they were well versed in scriptural knowledge. But then, as things started deteriorating, we see in Srimad Bhagavatam itself, King Vena was very irreligious. He started considering himself as God. He said, abandon all of the sacrifices, you worship me as God. Finally, he had to be killed. Text number 13. Translation Srila Prabhupada. Once upon a time, King Prithu initiated the performance of a very great sacrifice in which great saintly sages, Brahmanas, demigods from higher planetary systems, and great saintly kings, known as Raja Rishis, all assembled together. So King Prithu performed a great sacrifice in which all these great personalities came uh, and they attended the sacrifice. So in his sacrifice, even demigods and residents of higher planets also attend that sacrifice. Text 14. In that great assembly, Maharaja Prithu first of all worshipped all the respectable visitors according to their respective positions. After this, he stood up in the midst of the assembly and it appeared that the full moon had risen amongst the stars. So when Prithu Maharaj, when all of them came, Prithu Maharaj, to attend the sacrifice, Prithu Maharaj worshipped them properly according to Vedic traditions. So according to Vedic system, the reception of these exalted persons was very important. And the first procedure was that to receive the guests by washing their feet. And um, there is an example given in Mahabharata also, where Maharaja Yudhishthira performed a Rajasuya Yajna, and Krishna himself took charge of washing the feet of visitors. This is how important it was. So Prithu Maharaj also similarly arranged for proper reception of demigods, all the great sages, and Brahmanas and the kings. Text number 16. Yeah, text number 15. King Prithu's body was tall and sturdy, and his complexion was fair. His arms were full and broad, and his eyes as bright as rising sun. His nose was straight, and his face was very beautiful, and his personality grave. His teeth were set beautifully in his smiling face. So from the next two, three couple of verses, they describe about the beauty of Prithu Maharaj, bodily beauty. So Prithu Maharaj was an empowered incarnation. He had many attractive features also. It is also said that the face is the index of the mind. So when one's mind, mental, everybody is in a different state of mind, but that indication is exhibited from one's facial expressions. We can see that even today, if somebody is angry, we can see what is mental status. Then we decide, okay, we don't deal with the person. And if somebody is laughing it out, we can realize one may not be able to laugh out artificially for a long time, but then one is laughing it out, then we can find that yes, that he's in a proper mental state and we might want to talk to him. So all these beauty of external beauty is given to a person due to his past pious deeds, and whether in a human society or animal society or in the demigod society. So this is a proof that there is an transmigration of the soul through different bodies. Text number 16. The chest of Maharaja Prithu was very broad, his waist was very thick, and his abdomen wrinkled by lines of skin, resembled in construction of a leaf of a banyan tree. His navel was coiled and deep, his thighs were of a golden hue, and his instep was arched. And he wore something called a chadar. Those days also, when they used to wear the chadar on top of the dhoti. Text number 17. The black slick hair on his head was very fine and curly, and his neck, like a conch shell, was decorated with auspicious lines. Go to text 18. As Maharaja Prithu was being initiated to perform the sacrifice, he had to leave aside his valuable dress, and therefore his natural bodily beauty was visible. It was very pleasing to see him put on a black deerskin and wear a ring of kusa grass on his finger, for this increased the natural beauty of his body. It appears that Maharaja Prithu observed all the regulative principles before he performed that sacrifice. So, Prithu Maharaj observed everything that was there as per the religious principles, and these religious principles are laid down by the Lord himself and then given in turn in the form of scriptures to us for us to follow. There's a quote in Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam, Dharmam tu Sakshat Bhagavat Pranitam. Religious principles are emanating from the Lord himself. Text number 19. Just to encourage the members of the assembly to enhance their pleasure, King Prithu glanced over them with eyes that seemed like stars in a sky wet with dew. He then spoke to them in a great voice. So Prithu Maharaj also spoke to them very nicely. Apart from his bodily beauty, he also spoke to them in a very pleasing voice. Text 20. Prithu Maharaj's speech was very beautiful, full of metaphorical language, clearly understandable and very pleasing to hear. His words were all grave and certain. It appears that when he spoke, he expressed his personal realization of the absolute truth in order to benefit all who are present. So here there are some very important points. One is that Prithu Maharaj's speech was very, very beautiful. It was full of metaphorical language. Metaphorical means having analogies and examples. And it was very nice to hear and pleasing to hear. His words were very, very grave and they were very certain. So kings were used to have these qualities because that's what used to impress upon the audience. Along with that, he expressed his personal realization of the absolute truth. This is very important because when you uh, explain your own realizations, then you are in a position to convey your message proper effectively to others. For example, in today's society, if you consider, we say that four regulative principles: no meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit sex, and no gambling. So, if a king is not convinced of the need of these four regulative principles, and if he's able to express very clearly that by eating meat, you have to suffer for the consequences, you also will be killed and you will be eaten in some body, a king should have that realization. And if he expresses this realization referring the scriptures and practical examples as to how the citizens, by eating meat, they are bringing more distress to the society, which creates unhappiness, then the king's message will be heard properly. But this, one must have this realization and he must be in a position to express it very nicely. That is why a king's speech is supposed to be very important. Text 21. King Prithu said, "O gentle members of the assembly, may all good fortune be upon you. May all of you great souls who have come to attend this meeting kindly hear my prayer attentively. A person who is actually inquisitive must present his decision before an assembly of noble souls." This has got a lot of important points, which we'll try to understand. So, in Prithu Maharaj's assembly, there were a lot of demigod sages, which I mentioned here. And here, Prithu Maharaj is starting his speech by saying, "May all good fortune to you." That means when a person is great or famous, there are many different classes of personalities who attend such classes, such a speech. And because Prithu Maharaj was great, there were many well-wishers also in that audience. And Prithu Maharaj spoke in such a way, giving a lot of realizations about the absolute truth and all, giving a lot of examples. So they were all very and uh, uh, happy with whatever he presented. And then he started with saying, "All good fortune, good fortune to you." How many kings will today do speak saying good fortune to you? They are mostly interested in their votes only. And Prithu Maharaj addressed himself as a very honest person in a very gentle way, caring for everybody. He did not present himself as a royal authority, empowered to command, because he presented his statement in a very humble submission before the assembly of great sages and saintly persons. That's why it is said that humility is very, very important. And the way he presented himself, the citizens got impressed with his speech. It is said that a great king can give orders, but Prithu Maharaj was so humble, meek, and honest that he presented his statement for approval in order to clarify his mature decision. Prithu Maharaj had taken some decision. That means it is said that one should take into confidence all others also. and before taking decisions. And Prithu Maharaj consulted the Brahmanas and devotees of the Lord very well. Otherwise, in the material world, it is said that all of them are within the three modes of material nature, and they have four defects. One is imperfect senses. Second is they are easily illusioned. They are likely to commit mistakes, and they are prone to be cheated and cheat others also. But Prithu Maharaj was above all these qualities. He was above, he was not a conditioned soul. So he presented this statement in a very humble manner. One example given of the current age is Srila Prabhupada himself. Srila Prabhupada was an exemplary leader. He made so many leaders who could manage so many centers. That you, there are some examples of his humility itself. It is said that during the early stages of Srila Prabhupada, when he was in the US, the Westerners actually didn't have any culture. Even today, they don't have a culture. When we say they don't have a culture, uh, Vedic culture and their culture is very, very different. First and the foremost, they don't take bath regularly. If in our society, it is said that we should take a bath at least 3 times a day. I mean, at least those who are performing religious activities should take bath 3 times a day. So they are averse to taking bath, and they put a lot of perfume, artificial perfume, and try to decorate their body in such a way externally that they want to look beautiful. But that is not all that is required. A lot of external beauty is required naturally. That is why from the beginning of this verse itself, it is said that natural things keeps one in a cool mind. And we see that generally people in the Western culture, they eat a lot of meat, they drink a lot, there is a lot of socialization between men and women, and we try to follow all these things, and that is why we are also not happy. We are becoming greedy, we have a lot of pride. But Prithu Maharaj's case was a perfect example. He didn't have any pride. He presented his statement in a very humble manner. So it is said that a king never thinks that I am the greatest. He may be ruling the kingdom, but a king never thinks that he's the greatest. A good leader knows how to get the best of others. So one example from the Srimad Bhagavatam itself is that in the fourth canto itself is like Mother Suniti. She got the best out of Dhruva, whereas his stepmother Suruchi, she got the worst of Dhruva. So one personality, two different utilities. Text number 22. King Prithu continued, by the grace of the Supreme Lord, I have been appointed the king of this planet, and I carry the scepter to rule the citizens, protect them from all danger, and give them employment according to their respective positions in the social order established by Vedic injunction. Yeah, a lot of important, this is a very important sloka. Unfortunately, due to lack of time, I'm not reciting the sloka. So, yes, king is supposed to be appointed by the Supreme Personality of God himself to look after the interest of this particular planet. Now, when we say here, the Lord used to appoint these kings through, the Lord used to appoint, in fact, even now, if we try to come to the understanding, many might, this doesn't happen in a democracy, but in a monarchy time, the kings were appointed by the Lord himself. And the king also thinks that I have been appointed by the Lord to protect the citizens and give employment to all. So here in this verse, some important points are there. One is that a king is called a Kshatriya. Kshatriya means to protect, and that protection is not given only to human beings. The protection is given to all the living beings, whether it is animals, birds, etc. Every living entity needs protection. And one who gives that kind of protection to is called a Kshatriya. Otherwise, he's not a Kshatriya, he's a Shatbandhu. Second important duty is that a king is supposed to provide employment to all. Because if there is no employment, then there is no uh, activity. Whereas everyone is supposed to perform their duties as per the Varna Ashrama Dharma. Um, So another important point, according to Vedic system, the king is considered a representative of God and offered respects by the citizens of God in the human form of life. That means the king is represented by is a representative of God, and if a king lives with and lives like with all those qualities we have discussed, then he is offered respects by the citizens as God in the human form of life. This is how the kings used to be respected in the Esther years. And the kings had the perfect understanding it the Supreme Lord who maintains on the living entities, particularly human beings, and elevate them to the highest perfection. So the purpose of human life is to elevate them to the highest perfection, that is self-realization. And if a king is not able to promote that, then the king has failed in his duty. For which what is required is that, and mentioned is that the four social orders are like Brahmana, Varnas, that is Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. These are natural divisions created by the Lord himself, as he states in Bhagavad Gita, Chaturvarnam, Maya, Shishtam, Gunakarma, Vibhagasaha. So these are developed by the Lord with a particular purpose. And it is the duty of a king that the citizens take up this Varnashrama Dharma and observe duties as per that. And that every citizen is employed in their respective occupational duties. That means the king has to ensure that every Brahmana has got sufficient duty, every Kshatriya has sufficient duties, every Vaishya has got sufficient duty, and every Shudra has sufficient duties. When everyone has got sufficient duties to perform, the society does not have any uh, calamity. It is not deficient of anything. Everything will be abundant, available in abundancy. And it is because the king has withdrawn this particular protection to the citizens, the social order has already collapsed. Nowadays, nobody knows who is a Brahmana, who is a Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. So it is the duty of a king to re-establish the social order in terms of occupational duties and modes of material nature. And if it does not observe these four social orders, human society is no better than animal society, in which there is never any tranquility, peace, or prosperity, but only chaos and confusion, which we see today. The whole society has got only chaos and confusion. Why? Because it has become more of an animal society. Everybody is interested in only sense gratification. But Prithu Maharaj was an ideal king, and he observed strictly the maintenance of the Vedic social order. So Praja means Praja, anything that takes birth is called a part of the Praja. And Prithu Maharaj guaranteed that protection for all the Praja. One point, the disturbance of the animal population by wholesale slaughter produces a catastrophic future reaction for the butcher, his land, and his government. So wholesale slaughter of animals brings about distress to the land and the government also. Text 23. Maharaj Prithu said, I think that upon the execution of my duties as a king, I shall be able to achieve the desirable objectives described by experts in Vedic knowledge. This destination is certainly achieved by the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the seer of all destiny. Here also some very important points are there. Prithu Maharaj was insisting on Brahmavadina in this verse, which means that transcendental sound. Transcendental sound is not an ordinary language, though it appears like ordinary one. But from Vedic literature, we understand that transcendental sound is a final authority. That means Vedic literature has got so much of information, and that information is very important for the execution of a king's duty. So a responsible king who executes his appointed duty by giving proper protection to all living entities is promoted to the heavenly planetary systems. So if one executes his duty based on by giving protection to every living entity in the planet, like in whatever aspects I mentioned, by giving them employment, etc., successfully, if a king does this, then the king is promoted to the heavenly planetary system. But this depends on the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. It is not that one who has executed his duty automatically is elevated to the heavenly planets. No, it doesn't happen. One has to satisfy the Supreme Lord by the results of his activities. So that's why there is a reference in sloka that is given in the purport from first canto. I will not go into the sloka out of lack of want of time. The translation, the perfection of one's execution of his appointed duties is the ultimate satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. This is a very important point for everyone here. Whatever duties we execute, it should be ultimately executed for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, not for our sense gratification. When we do this, our duty for the satisfaction of the Lord becomes happy, and the Lord gives whatever is suitable for that candidate, citizen or the king. A true king does his service not out of his pride of his service, but for the satisfaction of the Lord. So that is why in our society we call servant leaders. We don't call leaders, we normally call servant leaders. That means we are here as leaders to serve. So we should be approachable, we should be available, we should be responsible, and we should be accountable also. So our future life depends on the satisfaction of the Lord based on whatever activities we do in this life. Today, most of the people are ignorant about it, even about their next birth and their next life, including the so-called scientists and philosophers. That is why they all run a great risk. Many politicians, we see that they are assassinated because the kings take a lot of reaction, which we'll discuss in next sloka, text 24. Any king who does not teach his citizens about their respective duties in terms of varna and asrama, but simply exacts tolls and taxes from them, is liable to suffer for the impious activities which have been performed by the citizens. In addition to such degradation, the king also loses his own fortune. So this is one important sloka we must understand and practice in our life. Anyone who does not teach about the Varnasrama system to the citizens, but simply starts exacting tolls and taxes, he is liable to suffer for all the impious activities performed by all the citizens in the kingdom. And in addition to that, the king also loses his own fortune. And in the sense that actually the king suffers in hell if he just extract taxes but does not protect. So now you can understand with so many slaughterhouses present, how citizens will be happy and the destination of the king also. So there is another quote in Srimad Bhagavatam, which I'll take through it quickly. If a king does not extract taxes but does not protect, he takes 1/6 of the karma of each and every individual living entity. Now you can understand what is the condition of such a king after he leaves his body. We'll not dwell on it further. It is said in the Shastras, if one eats in a place which is very sinful, he shares in the resultant reaction of the sinful activities that are performed there. That means if one has performed a sinful activity in a place, and if a king or even, anybody, as a matter of fact, eats in that particular place, he shares the resultant reaction of all those sinful activities that was performed there. We can't define what is the percentage. That means, for example, if an animal is slaughtered in a place, but the place externally they clean it, but somebody comes and eats there, even in that he takes a part of that karma. That is how the law of karma works. There are many subtle laws which are not known to the people in general, but we in Krishna conscious movement, we see that before we clean, we honor prasadam, we clean the place, etc. We try to distribute whatever the Vedic knowledge is available. Text number 25. Translation says, Prithu Maharaj continued, therefore, my dear citizens, for the welfare of your king after his death, you should execute your duties properly in terms of your positions of Varna and Asrama, and should always think of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in your hearts. By doing so, you will protect your own interests and you will bestow mercy upon your king for his welfare after his death. That means the king was concerned what was going to happen to him after his death. This was the concern of the kings of these days. So here in this verse, Prithu Maharaj is pleading to the citizens to take up the Varnashrama system and observe, always think of the Supreme Personality in your heart By doing so, you will protect not only your interests, you will also bestow your mercy upon me for my welfare after death. That means the king understood that he has got another birth waiting for him. And that depends on the citizens' execution of Varnashrama Dharma and their belief in God consciousness. So, in a nutshell, the summary was that the king was wanting the citizens to become God conscious. By doing so, the king, they also become happy, and the king also gets delivered. The king does not have to go to hell. Text number 26 is the last sloka for today. I request all the pure-hearted demigods, forefathers, and saintly persons to support my proposal, for after death, the result of an action is equally shared by its doer, its director, and its supporter. So this is a very important sloka. That means that king is pleading all the demigods who are present there, all the forefathers, and is also asking all the saintly persons to support his proposal. He can demand, he can rule, but he's not doing that. He's pleading. This is the humility of King Prithu Maharaj. Then he says, for that after death, the result of an action is equally shared by its doer, its director, and its supporter. That means Prithu Maharaj government was a perfect government and he ruled it perfectly well. He explains that for any action, there is an equal and opposite reaction, for which one who is performing the action, he suffers, one who has authorized that action, he suffers, and one who has supported that action, he also suffers. So King Prithu Maharaj wanted his citizens to fully cooperate with him in a way that they also enjoy the profit as well as he enjoys after death. Enjoy means get a better life after death. But this is a fact which nobody knows today, and that is the reason we are all suffering. So Krishna conscious movement is there to make us understand these intricacies of life and give practical examples like Prithu Maharaj, which we can apply in our day-to-day life. It is not that we are in Kali Yuga, we can't apply, but even in Kali Yuga, if we are able to execute whatever possible within our capacity, that also has got better results. With this, I conclude the class for the day. Next 1 or 2 minutes, I can take some questions, if anybody of you have.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare
Dhanvat
Krishna.
Pranam.
Yes, Mataji.
Prabhuji,
Hare Krishna.
the entire session was very enlightening, and
Yeah.
Prithu Maharaj's life is very inspiring.
Yes.
Prabhuji, I have a question, but
Yes.
out of not this about the class, but Prabhuji, the best way to burn our bad karmas is by suffering. Can you just enlighten me about this? I heard in Krishna consciousness this, but can you just enlighten me about this?
There is a sloka in Brahma Samhita also. When you take up, I will not go into detail, when you take up devotional service to the Lord, automatically your lot of bad karma starts vanishing. Some part of suffering will be there, but not the full suffering. So immediate step is to take up the process of devotional service by chanting the holy name of the Lord, by which you become free to a very great extent. Some suffering may be there. You take it as a suffering due to your past karma.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Any other, is it okay? The answer was okay with you?
Yes, Prabhuji, like even after being in Krishna consciousness, there are like sufferings is there.
Mm.
So that is what, how to take it, like, yeah.
The Pandavas were great devotees of the Lord, and they were put into a lot of suffering to show the common man. One is material world is full of suffering only, but to teach a lot of lessons that ultimately the virtuous will always win. And one example is Bhishma Deva was a great devotee of the Lord, but the Lord taught that by fighting on the wrong side, one will not win, but will be defeated. So Bhishma Deva, though being a great devotee of the Lord, he was skilled to show that one should fight always on the side of Dharma. One should always be on the side of Dharma. So there are different lessons we take by reading Mahabharata, Ramayana. Like in the case of Rama, I said that he even heard a plea of the dog. So are we here today understanding the sufferings of people who are related to us? And when I say related, not only family relatives, but others whom we are connected. So whatever possible, we should try and apply by learning these. We should take what we can't imitate, but we can follow whatever is possible.
It's
Is it clear?
Prabhuji, after this lecture, I realized that we are nowhere near what we are actually supposed to be doing. Nowhere
Yes.
in any field. It's giving me a lot of guilt, and I don't know what I'm
If you are
doing.
if you are feeling guilty, I'm happy because at least you have learned something. At least now you should take up and apply some of the whatever possible in your practical life. That is very
Yes,
important.
Prabhuji, very enlightening class. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. Anybody else? Any other questions, comments?
Prabhuji, the class was really very enlightening, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for answering my question also, Hare Krishna.
Thank you all very much for being very patient. Yes. Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Sridhar Prabhu.
Nothing, Prabhuji. Not me.
Okay. Can I take the classes course, Prabhu?
Sure, sure. Any
Thank-
devotees has any questions? Can we close? Devotees? Somebody was asking something.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavad Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Dandavat
Krishna.
Pranam.
Thank you very
Hare
much for your class, Prabhu.
Th-
Dandavad
th-
Pranams.
Thank you all very much. Grantha Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Danapnam.